There's been a lot of attention recently online about Oprah's claims that America is a caste system. Basically, her assertion is that if you're white, no matter what, you'll have an advantage. I think it's very important to look at the claim and not attack Oprah as a person. There's been too many personal attacks. One of the great things about the American system historically is that we should be able to debate our ideas openly using logic and reason. And so, full disclosure, I grew up in the 80s as a kid, and I've always admired Oprah as a person, and I continue to admire Oprah as a person. So this is not about a personal attack on Oprah. It's about the argument. Does the argument have merit? What she said about a caste system. So in this video, I'm going to provide the evidence for the counter argument. So going back to the ancient Greek tradition of dialectic arguments or dialectic debate, if you've got an assertion, you should also look at the counter argument. If you have an argument, you should look at the counter argument. What is the evidence for and against a particular argument? So maybe perhaps playing devil's advocate, I'm going to go into the evidence that counters the argument that America is a caste system. I'm going to provide some evidence for that, some data. Okay, so let's take a look at it. First of all, is America a caste system? Meaning that if you are white, you're going to be on the top no matter what. Okay, that's the assertion. I think the evidence points to something different. It points more to a meritocracy. Okay, and I'll get into that in a moment. But let's take a look at the first evidence. According to the U.S. Census Bureau, okay, this is a chart that shows household income by race. Okay, so you can see here very clearly, Asians are at the top of the list. So this is as of 2018. The average Asian in America made $81,331 per year. Below that, we have white, $68,145 per year. All races combined, $61,372 per year. Then we have Hispanic, $50,486 per year. And finally, we have Black at the bottom, $40,258 per year. So you can ask yourself the question, why are Asians at the top? Okay, now let's look at disadvantage. Okay, we know Asians have had tremendous disadvantage historically. Okay, we know, for example, the Chinese early immigrants in the 1800s who built the railroads faced enormous discrimination. They were attacked. They were given a de facto slave wage, even though they were paid. It was basically slave labor. It was a very dangerous labor. In World War II, President Franklin Delano Roosevelt created the Executive Order 9066, and he unilaterally rounded up all the Japanese Americans and threw them into internment camps and confiscated their business, confiscated their wealth. And it wasn't until President Reagan issued a formal apology in the 1980s and actually gave some money back to the Japanese who were interned during World War II. So we know. And Asians have also faced a big problem with language barrier, so they had to come in and learn English as a second language. So despite all of the barriers against Asians, they have surpassed whites. They earn more than whites. Now you have to ask yourself the question, if America is a white supremacist country, how could such a racist country ever allow Asians to surpass whites by a large margin? Again, we go back to $68,000 a year for whites and $81,000 a year for Asians. That's a discrepancy. That's how do you explain that? Okay, first of all. Well, second of all, now let's correlate this with another bit of information. let's look at the Brookings Institute survey from 2003 to 2013. We see that this is the number of minutes per day that that students do homework per day. Okay, so we see here on this chart, Asians do more homework than any other group. Okay, we have Asians doing over 100 minutes, about 110 minutes of homework per day, okay, on average. Then we have whites doing about less than 60 minutes of homework per day, okay? Then we have Hispanics coming in below whites, but not by very much, maybe 10 minutes a day. And then we have blacks at around 50 minutes a day. So again, we look at how much homework do you do, okay? Now again, keep in mind, Asians come into this country at a disadvantage. They don't come in with a lot of money. You know, they come in at a disadvantage, but they're still doing almost twice as much homework as white people. And then, you know, and then they're earning significantly more than white people. So we can see very clearly there's a correlation between the amount of homework you do and your income. So that indicates not a caste system, but in fact a meritocracy. So the more you put in, the more you get out. Okay, so the more you put in, the more you get out. Now let's look at Oprah. She's worth about $2.5 billion. Now, I'll be the first one to admit, Oprah is extremely talented, extremely charismatic, universally loved by all racial groups. And if you look at her talent and her skills and her drive and her motivation, that shows that in a single lifetime, because again, Oprah didn't come from money. I'm pretty sure she grew up poor. So in a single lifetime, she went from poverty to being a multi-billionaire. Okay, so that shows a meritocracy, not a caste system. There are numerous examples. President Obama, which I'm proud that I voted for President Obama. And I think, you know, again, here's a guy who didn't come from money, worked hard, went to an Ivy League school, became the president of the United States. So again, meritocracy. All right. And there's countless examples of this happening. I'm not saying it's easy. It's not easy for anybody. It's not easy for Asians. It's not easy for any group. But the evidence is very clear that the more you study, the more hours or minutes per day you put into studying, the higher your economic potential, earning potential is going to be. And that's just a fact. That's undisputable. Okay, so let's take a look at another thing. Let's look at crime. All right, so the media tends not to report crime accurately. Okay, so I have statistics here from 2018 from the Bureau of Justice, National Crime Victimization Survey. So you can see the crime by racial groups. Okay. Again, you can look up all these studies yourself, but we have interracial crime. Now, black on white is the most. We see 547,948 crimes committed, black on white. Now, the lowest category is actually white on black, only 59,778. Okay, so take a look at this data. We see significantly more black on white crime than we see white on black. In fact, the black on white crime is the highest category by far. So again, that's according to the Bureau of Justice Statistics as of 2018. So again, what you have in the media is a corporate media that is ratings driven. Okay, the more sensational the story, the higher the ratings are going to be. The more money the corporate media is going to make. You actually have to look at the local reporting to find out what's actually going on. So just a case recently, summer 2020, we had a black man in Portland, Oregon, go into a laundromat carrying a handsaw and started beating two white women with a handsaw. So we have this story here. Okay. Now this story was reported at the local level, KOIN 6 Portland. Okay. You can look this up. Washington Examiner reported on this. It's on YouTube as well. You can see the original footage. But a black man goes into a laundromat carrying a handsaw and starts beating two white women, okay, with a handsaw. Now, we know for a fact, I don't think anyone can deny this, that if it had been a white man going into a laundromat with a handsaw and beating two black women, I think we can universally agree that would be played on national media 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for months on end. Okay. The problem is the national media overall tends to report on anecdotes. They don't report on actual crime statistics. They tend to cherry pick things that fit a particular narrative. But when we actually drill down into the data and we actually look into local reporting, we can see a much different narrative. Okay, so what are some implications from this? The U.S. By far is a meritocracy. The more you put in, the more you get out. And in fact, it could even be that the last 50, 60 years of affirmative action and race-based preferences, particularly in admissions in schools and in hiring, might have actually been more damaging to the black community because it creates a victim mentality. If you're constantly told that, you're a victim and the world is out to get you, then you're not going to really take advantage of all the opportunities available to you in life. Okay. Whereas Asians tend to have this culture drilled in from a young age. Studying is their life. Highly driven. And that's a sociocultural mindset instilled in them, okay? But we can see in America examples of any racial group going from poverty to being worth multi-millions or multi-billions in a single lifetime, okay? So again, this is not an attack on Oprah. Like I said, I've been a fan of Oprah for at least 30 years. I would be interested to talk with her one-on-one and kind of drill down and think, and get to more of where she's coming from on this issue, because I think there's been a lot of misunderstanding. The reality is America is the greatest country in the world. And the reason why it's the greatest country in the world is because it has a mechanism in place for self-correction. Okay. And if anything, going forward, what are the implications going forward? I think we need to have more of a universal standard for everybody, and that everyone needs to bring out their best self. And that can only be through a race to the top, through meritocracy, through vigorous competition amongst all people, bringing out the best categories. And I will say that the final example I think of is Jesse Owens, who won the gold medal. Now, there's a lot of talk today about Nazis. Nazi is a term that's kind of flippantly thrown around a lot. Like, oh, you're a Nazi, you don't agree with me, you're a Nazi, you're a Nazi. But let's go back to 1936, to the Nazi Olympics in Berlin, Germany. Jesse Owens was a black man from America who won the gold medal. Now, he was competing against actual Nazis, okay? Actual Nazis. Keep in mind, Hitler attended the 1936 Olympics in Germany. He was, again, these were open, unapologetic, actual Nazis. These weren't like, okay, you're a Republican, I'm just going to call you a Nazi. These were actual Nazis, and he won the gold medal. Now think about that. I'm sure that Jesse Owens had inferior facilities. He probably didn't have the gyms and the exercise equipment that the Nazis had. And so he wasn't given a handout. He was put in the ringer, okay? Full force. You don't get any privilege points or anything. And he still won despite that, okay? So getting back to schools, we know that blacks, based on our system of admissions in colleges, that blacks, and there have been countless stories about this and even lawsuits where blacks who have significantly lower ACT, SAT scores and GPA can actually get in over whites and actually get in over Asians. So basically what we have is a system where blacks are given disproportionate advantage, okay, based on historical wrongs. So we're trying to right historical wrongs. But think about this in terms of the 1936 Olympics. If they would have said, oh, Jesse Owens, you don't have to perform as well as your Nazi counterparts and you'll still get the gold medal, I think that would have sent the wrong message. I think you just say, here is the universal standard, okay, and everyone has to meet that standard. And then when they do meet that standard, they're going to feel so good. They're going to have such a strong feeling of accomplishment and self-worth that is going to actually propel everyone to bring out their best self. But when you say, oh, you only got a 2.0 in high school and the Asian kid got a 4.0 and the white kid got a 3.9, but you got a 2.0, oh, but you get into Harvard or you can still get into Stanford or these Ivy League schools, I actually think that sends the wrong message. It creates a victim mentality. That actually perpetuates a caste system because you're putting a psychological barrier on people. You're saying that system is actually creating the inferiority complex because you're saying, oh, you got a 2.0, but you'll still get in because you're black. That actually creates a very corrosive, negative self-image. What we should say is, hey, if the standard for Harvard is a 3.9, then it's a 3.9, period, done. Okay, if it's a 35 on the ACT, that's a universal standard. Everyone, and then when they meet that standard, then they're going to feel so damn good about meeting that standard. You don't want to create a system where, oh, you're a victim, oh, you can never achieve, you can never be as academically good as a white or an Asian. I think that actually creates a caste system. So going forward, what do we do? How do we correct the wrongs? I think we look at socioeconomics. We say, okay, like if your parents were billionaires and your dad was, or if your dad was the president of the United States, you don't really need a handout, okay? If you're a kid who grew up in Wyoming and your mom was a meth addict, I don't care what your skin color is. We need to help you, okay? We need to help people who are poor, regardless. Do whatever we can to up the bar, help them achieve. That's how we go forward as a universal system where we're all universally equal, we're treated the same, there's this same universal standard, but we do look and say, hey, you were raised by a single mom, or your dad was a drug addict or whatever, your mom was a drug addict. We need to help those people, regardless of what they look like, regardless of their skin color. And I think that's how we go forward. And I will say on a final note, we're going to Mars. We're going to colonize Mars. We're going to be an interplanetary species. I really don't think it benefits us as a human race to play identity politics or to tear each other down. I think we need to bring out the best version of ourselves as a species. And going back to Oprah, I think that's what Oprah was really good at in the 80s and the 90s. Watching her show is bringing out the best of everyone. And that's, I think, where we need to go as a civilization. If we start going down the road of, tearing each other down based on our skin color, I think that's the wrong avenue. I think we really need to elevate our collective consciousness as a species and go forward in a positive way. All right, that's it. Look forward to your comments. Hit the subscribe button if you like this video. Appreciate it.